We are live with this episode of the Sales Confidence Podcast with one of my favorite characters in the SaaS space, Matthew Blanchard, who is the General Manager for Varicent. Varicent is the world's leading sales performance management platform and have a whole host of value offerings that we're going to learn about today in terms of how you build out your sales organization and incentive and compensation plans across your business. Matt, it's an absolute pleasure. This is long overdue, this conversation. So I'm really glad to be having it today. Just to go straight into it really and kick things off, I'd love to know what you're most excited about today.
I think one, getting the opportunity to finally talk to you one-on-one, James, because we never get this time and you've been chasing me for so long. But I think the other part is just to share, because one of the things that I like to do is actually reflect on success and reflect on what's made me who I am, because of what these things shape us, whether they're positive or negative. So what it's done is really made me look back at myself, and hopefully people will be able to learn from that throughout today.
Yeah, great. And I think, you know, one of the things I'm sure people will learn from you, Matt, is that you're very transparent, you're very open, you're very accessible. And I think, you know, that for me makes for one, an inspirational leader, but also someone that I'm just looking forward to learning more about. So, you know, we'll start with you and then we go into a bit more about like Varicent and what your platform offers in terms of the value prop, and then learn a bit more about how you approach developing your confidence, your experience before we wrap up. So, you know, my question I always like to kind of ask, because I'm very curious about this, is like, what's the first thing you typically think of when you wake up in the morning?
It's a great question. And I think that it changes. It depends on what period of time it is and where you are. So the first thing is right now, I wake up and I think of the deals we've got left in the cycle and are they going to get done, because it's the important factor in our year. But normally I wake up and I think about the people that matter to me and what I've got to do for them in the day, because I pride myself on being a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. And so if I didn't try and make contact with somebody, if I didn't do something I was supposed to do, I think about those and I jot them down on a piece of paper to make sure I don't forget them again. But when it comes to end of period, end of half, I make sure that I consider the deals that are in place to make sure that we can do what we desire for our company, but also our loved ones.
Oh, fantastic. Just out of interest, you mentioned note-taking. So are you still a man with a pad and paper?
Yeah, I love a Mont Blanc. There's a great thing that gets you down where if you have something tangible that you can work on next to you, it means that I can control the controllables, which are the things I have to get done. If I've written them down and if I've taken the time to put it down as a priority for me that day, it means it's something that's important to me. So yeah, I have a notepad and pen, and the book was actually bought for me a couple of Christmases ago, and the book's title is Make This Happen. And so anything that goes in there, I have to make happen. It's just like subliminal messages that give you that foundation to build from for the day.
I love that. That's great. That's a great tactic and habit, really. You know, it's a part of a daily habit in terms of, you know, how you manage your day-to-day in life, which is really interesting. You know, you've had a really interesting career in terms of, you know, how you've developed yourself into a leader, working in part of a huge global corporate, and then going now into the spin out of Varicent, and, you know, becoming ultimately responsible for the region as GM. Like, where does your motivation come from and inspiration come from to kind of keep achieving, you know, quarter on quarter, year on year?
I think it comes back to what I said at the beginning. I just want to be a better version of myself, which means I have to do two things. I have to keep my mind clear as to what I want to do, but I have to understand that deep down, I just want to help people, including myself. So the technology I offer does help organizations do things better. It does make salespeople be more effective. It does provide them transparency. But underneath that, if I look at where I've come from, my passion for this product is because of the fact that deep down, really, I'm a salesperson that wants to make sure that I strive for success. And so in success, I need to make sure that the behaviors I instill in myself and in my people are doing things in the right way. So treating our customers with the right level of interaction time, making sure that our salespeople understand that our customer is important to us, but they are too. So it's that combination thing. And when I look back at my career, I think that as I've been in finance, I've been into sales. I was a BDR at one point in time and sales leadership. I've been in a small startup. I've been in mid-market and in enterprise. I think the key thing is that everything happens for a reason, but ultimately you have to take anecdotal information from each of those times to make yourself better. And so I don't think I'm the finished article yet, not by a long way, but I do believe that I have the ability to be good at whatever I put my mind to, because ultimately we all can be.
No, I like that philosophy. Do you recall your first experience of, the first deal you closed or the first interaction you had with a salesperson? And what was that like?
Yeah. So the first deal I closed, it was a customer that's actually now a customer of mine again. So
Wow.
it was a telecommunications company based in Mechelen, and the sales cycle was just over 15 months.
Wow.
And I remember my sales leader at that point in time turned around and said to me, "You've got the greatest capability for not showing that you're stressed," because each month I was saying, "It's coming." The sign-off process was 3 months long. It was just crazy. And what I think what that journey guided me to understand is that you have to make sure that you give clear indication as to what expectation is, and make sure that both sides have something in it for that benefits one another, to make sure you get the outcome you want. Because I was just so focused on the fact I was winning my first deal that I forgot about what was in it for the customer, not just the project, but what else went with it. And so therefore, I just let things that really, what basics, happen around me, and I didn't control the controllables. And I think that was one of the best moments of my life when I finally executed it. Mainly because of the fact it meant I didn't have to talk about it on any forecast calls anymore.
Yeah, it was more a feeling of relief that
Yeah.
actually the forecast finally came through and you got the deal done.
Correct. Well, until then they became a potential customer of Varicent, and then I heard the name again, and it was bringing back shivers. So,
Oh, I love that. Well, it shows how long you've been around, Matt, that you're bringing that to the table for Varicent as well. That's really interesting. You mentioned there you've worked in different stages of company, obviously different roles to get to this stage. Like, what do you think it's been about your approach to like how you sell that's made you successful at kind of each stages of your career?
yeah, I think this is a really interesting one, because you read all these things on LinkedIn where people say you have to work hard to get the output. That's a guarantee, but you could do that within your workday if you prioritize things correctly. You don't need to go to the nth degree with adding more hours in for your management. You don't. You have to have a work-life balance. I'd say the key thing that works well with me is, or not works well with me, works well for me is that I still believe that people buy from people. We sell a technology, but relationships matter. And so it doesn't matter if it's a relationship with a partner or if it's a relationship with a customer. Once you get that common view of one another, and once you have an understanding as to what the personal gain or the personal benefit of your technology is for somebody else, and you can leverage that in a way that they trust what you're saying is going to be the outcome of the technology you're deploying, it becomes easier. And that's the same when I talk to my business partners. That's the same when I talk to my internal team. It's that commitment that they have a relationship with me, and I'm not just going to disappear. We're there to make sure that you're going to be a success, whatever step of the journey and whatever guise you play a part of my life.
I love that. I think that personal connection and understanding the impact of the problems that your product is solving on the individual and their world, that understanding to that level makes a huge difference. So on that kind of piece then, and the impact that you have right now at Varicent, can you, just for those that are maybe new to learning about Varicent, like what do you actually do as a company, and who do you specifically help, and what problems do you solve for businesses?
This is a great question, and we spend many hours and many pounds on marketing this to the industry. But where we effectively came from, and the reason I got into this domain was because as salespeople, we don't trust the data that's given to us. Typically, organizations are using Excel to show us how much commission we're being paid for selling a product on behalf of our company. But actually, if you think about the word commission, it's not just salespeople. There's contact center agents out there that get paid based off of a balanced scorecard. There's BDRs that inside of your community, James, that will get paid on pipeline addition, that will get paid on number of calls. There's then delivery drivers that get paid on the amount that they're en route on time. All of these things are complicated and they're typically managed through Excel. And so what our application does at Varicent, and where it really came from, is incentivizing the right behavior, no matter where you are in the organization, and making it simple so that you believe it on your phone, on the go, so that you have the ability to understand what's expected of you today and tomorrow. And where we've amalgamated, or where we've moved into next, is effectively into the planning component. Because if you consider paying people for the right activity at the right point in time, you need to make sure you have the right people in the right place to do that. So if one territory is performing higher or having a bigger and a larger propensity for inbound leads, so if France is growing over the UK, you can make sure you make business decisions to support that and make sure that you have the right people in the right place with the right understanding as to what's expected to get the outcome that everybody desires. And if we think about the world that we're in now, the global shift that we're seeing, the pandemic that we've just gone through, now into the global recession, what it's meaning is companies have the ability to make the right investments. And so going back to something you mentioned a moment ago, working with people inside of the business to make sure they understand that they're investing in the right platform, but for the right reasons. Because if I speak to a CFO at the moment, they're talking about revenue. They want to make sure that their costs are at the right level, but their revenue does not outlay what they're going to have to effectively cover their books with. You've got sales leaders that are being told that they're going to still have to grow next year, even though we're in a period of probably decrease sales cycles. Sales cycles will elongate and there'll be less of them. There's conversations where SDRs, people are looking to shut down SDR organizations, but actually each and every one of those decisions will be based off of a form of data, and our technology enables them to make those decisions in the correct way.
I love that. And I think, that's for individuals building out their sales organization. It's not just about the compensation element that Varicent provides. It's a complete business planning tool from a territory and mapping out where you need to drive your revenue growth. And I think, kind of us educating the audience on those elements is important. Naturally, Varicent's been continuing to go through some substantial growth. What type of people do you typically attract to Varicent? Like, what do you look for in the people that you decide to hire?
Sure. So I think we attract anybody that comes from the tech space at the moment because we're innovative and we're growing. So everybody wants to be part of something that's good. When we're looking to hire people, there's a couple of things we look for. One is energy, because we're a fast-paced organization. We want to continue to grow. We want to make sure that we've got the right people that are all rowing in the same direction. So it's energy that fits the culture we have, which is making sure that we're egoless. Everybody inside of our business works with one another. We make sure we help one another as we go through our journeys. And we give career succession plans and mentors throughout our business so that we can aid people, whether it be a new starter or a senior person, get better. And then the final part is somebody that's driven, because we have a desire to be great at what we do day in, day out. But then also we want to change the industry. As you said, we're the number one provider inside of the world at the moment, with some of the largest company logos you could possibly imagine. What we want to do is change the way in which the market sees this application. So instead of nobody waking up and going, Jesus, I need a compensation platform, they wake up and go, hey, we should look at that Varicent thing and it's because our people are talking about it and our customers are talking about it.
Yeah, it's great. And I think what was interesting for me at your Engage conference in London was hearing those like specific use cases and the outcomes that you had driven for your customers. Like the innovation's there, but like it has a serious impact across the organization. And that leads to a kind of a massive ROI when companies invest in Varicent. So it's been great to kind of go on that journey and learn more about it. Just like going a bit more tactical into kind of sales and some of the things that you've learned along your career, is there a particular book or podcast that you've read or listened to where you've kind of had some major takeaways and you'd kind of recommend to others to check out?
I think one that was actually given to me by somebody in your community, James, if honest. I think we all talk about sales methodologies. We all talk about MEDDIC, and we all think we understand MEDDIC. But the really intriguing thing to me was I use that book as a refresher pretty much every quarter. So I read Andy's book, Andy White, from the MEDDIC organization, and I read it because of the fact that not that I don't understand it, but I want to remind myself as to the importance of each of the different components to it. We then actually bring that into our Salesforce forecasting. So each of our sellers has to then outline the metric, the economic buyer, the decision criteria inside of our Salesforce opportunities. Because then when that gets transitioned to our customer success organization, they understand the goals of our customer as well as what the sales organization did. And we can help them on that journey. So I read that book quite almost like quite crazily because of the fact you need that refresher. I think the other one is because of the fact that I'm a leader inside of an organization, and as I've said, I'm reflective. There's a set of books called The 5 Silos of an Organization, of a successful organization. And what that book talks about is how day-to-day marketing work inside of the marketing world, sales work inside of the sales world, finance have their view. And it's the culmination of how you get everybody inside of an organization, even with different objectives, to work in a programmatic way that, as it states in the book, gets everybody rowing in the right direction. And again, I read that fairly frequently in the series that goes beyond it. We were instructed to by a CEO because of the way in which he likes to run his organization. And what it's done is it's made me consider every decision I make as a leader, because I want to make sure that I'm communicating why we're doing things, so that much like in a boat, you have the skull at the top that's saying row. Everybody knows why we're making why we're burning the calories we are and why we're making the efforts we are, because then everybody does row in the right direction in the way that enables us not to have bumps inside of the water. We're systematically winning.
I love that. I mean, as a former rowing athlete myself, I can relate to that analogy. And my old rowing coach used to, the word that he used to use was synergy, in sync.
Yeah.
And as you've said, rowing in the same direction, following behind the same vision and goal, and then moving towards that goal. So there's some great recommendations there. You've obviously hired hundreds of salespeople. You've interacted with thousands of them. In the salespeople, what is it in the salespeople that you see are like top performers? What is it about their character or attributes that kind of stand out to you, like in the best performing salespeople?
Tenacity. Like some of the people I've worked with, their tenacity is unheard of. They'll be told the word no 5 or 6 times, and they just keep going. And it's not in a belligerent or pestering way. It's just a different way of asking that same question. And so in some cases, I had one person that reminded me of a child until I understood what they were doing. But I have a guy that works for me or works with us at the moment, and he is just unbelievable with the way in which he questions people, and then unbelievable in the way in which he makes them understand the importance of what we're doing, and then getting the mutual activity plan put in place. Mm-hmm. The tenacity just to go through each of the steps in a way that is clear and concise is there. And it's just the ethic. It's something that you haven't had to train in that individual. It just seems to come from what they desire. Some of us are motivated by money. Some of us are motivated by success. But ultimately, it's the foundation in our DNA that sets that component up, and understanding how you can use empathy at the right times. But the tenacity is something that I really look for, or really now admire in some of these people.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great observation. Thinking about the innovation that Varicent's bringing to the market, and how much you interact with kind of global sales organizations and just the profession in general. Do you have any predictions or like any sales trends that you're seeing, thinking ahead to 2023 and beyond? Like, what do you see changing or evolving or developing in terms of how people approach sales or what's going on in sales organizations?
I think for a period of time, we'll see specialisms come back to the table because the opportunity, a prediction in the enterprise space would be that there will be net new business that's won by organizations, but it will be less. There will be less opportunities than there were, say, 12 months ago. And the reason for that is people will become more cost conscious. So it will be a case of technology being flipped out for a competitive application. And in that, it's going to be a case of people will want to understand, will want to believe that you understand their domain. And I think for that to happen, specialism is going to be a key part to that. We have pre-sales today, we have sellers, we have BDRs that are all specialists in what they do. But if you're talking to an insurance provider versus a telecommunications company, they expect a different level of understanding. And because of that, I think the specialism will come back. I think that there's a huge conversation taking place at the moment about the role of BDR and account executive and the roles that a regional sales manager can play and who owns what component of outbound communication, where do they sit, marketing or sales. I think that will continue for a period of time, but that again will go back to a point where people believe that BDR is the specialist at what they do and salesperson is the specialist at what they do. And you shouldn't actually try and make one person both job roles. Mm-hmm. I think that you'll see that happen over the next 12 months as well.
Interesting observations. I like the sound of that. For you to kind of get up every day, we were talking prior to this conversation, the amount of travel that you do, you show up and have a presence and impact on influencing, persuading people to invest in Varicent and your technology. You've got to maintain that with leading an organization. Like, where does Matt's confidence come from? Where does confidence, like, how have you built your confidence up over the years?
I think that's a really interesting one. And I think, this is where transparency comes in, James. You know that I've struggled in the past with things like panic attacks and anxiety, which isn't something you typically see from somebody that smiles and is confident. Deep down, actually, I'm still an anxious individual. But what I do is I use the fear. I was at one of the Women in Tech events that you hosted a couple of weeks back. And one thing that really resonated with me with one of the young ladies that was presenting was use the fear in a way that actually enables you to be a success. So I'm confident because I believe in myself. I believe that I can achieve anything I put my mind to. And I believe I'm a good person. So therefore, I will make sure that I do my damnedest to make whoever's in the room feel great about themselves. But ultimately, there are times where I doubt myself. There are. We're human. We're coming into a period of time where everybody thinks happiness is Christmas, but there are people out there that will struggle during this time. And it's the fact that I'm open enough to have those conversations, but utilize the fear in a way that I see as being positive. So if I feel down on a day, I pick up the phone and I talk to somebody that I know is going to help pick me up. If I feel down and I know that person's not about, I'll try and get into work to focus on something that gives a small amount of success that shows me I am great at what I do. And if I'm feeling great, I'll then go and try and help others around me because that's the important factor. And like I said right at the beginning, what I judge myself on is I don't judge myself on others. We live in a social world where everything is about the number of Instagram followers you have. I don't have an Instagram account. The number of tweets you get. I don't have a Twitter account. These types of things I take out of my life because I don't want the negative factor. What I do is I focus on what I can do to make myself better. And things like LinkedIn give me the opportunity to learn from peers that are going to make me better.
Do you know what? I think that's such a genuine perspective. And, not often you say that, but or people share it, but, that idea of just being a good person, like, I think that's what a lot of people, humans, strive for. They just want to be acknowledged for doing the right thing at the right time. I can definitely really personally relate to that. And I think how you remind yourself and kind of listen to your own self-talk and instill your own belief in yourself is really important, because on the downside, our negative self-talk can pull us down, and then sometimes on the upside, too much positivity can potentially lead to a level of arrogance. So getting that right balance of humility and confidence is really important. And you're definitely a leader that I've admired for a long time, that just brings that honesty and transparency. And I think that allows you to kind of inspire people, because it's coming from a genuine place, and that's really impactful. So I appreciate you opening up and sharing about that. You mentioned there.
I think the other interesting thing on that point, James, so some of the people that work closely with me will say I'm a pessimist, because of the fact that actually there are times when something's happening around me and I will go to the worst connotation of what can happen as a protective outcome, because that's what we do. Like, you don't want to put yourself out to be knocked down. And it's those people around me that help change my mindset at that period of time. So the reason I bring this up is because sometimes we will be surrounded, or we will be in a room with these types of people, and we as individuals then have to stand up and help that person through it, because it's not always easy to change your mindset. There's a couple of ladies that people will know that have been sales confidence that work for me, that are so strong and so strong-minded that they will change the way that people think just in an instant, just by something they say. And it's really important to surround yourself by those people, because they will help you. But it's down to you as an individual to say if there's something negative or if there's something going on. You can't always rely on others. We as humans don't want to fail. We want help. So put your hands up and ask. There's nothing wrong with that.
I definitely agree with that. I mean, one of the comments sort of line that I've used in my career, especially for younger people starting in the profession, is like, first and foremost, you have to back yourself. You have to show up and back yourself, and others. Then you can lean on others to kind of support you with that belief. That's some great perspectives there. You've opened up already in this conversation and previously about some of the challenges that you faced. Just where you're comfortable. Just curious about in the career that you've had, which has been extensive now. Like, where have you faced some like major hardship or challenge, and how have you been able to kind of overcome that and see it through and kind of get out to the other side?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think that one of the things is always, I was made redundant twice. And so I bring this up because we're going to a period where if you read the news, it's so doom and gloom. Like, everybody's not going to have a job within the next 2 weeks if you read certain papers, but it's just not going to happen. So I was made redundant twice. And the thing that it did for me was it made me reflect on where I was. At that point in time, I was in the financial industry. I was working for a subprime mortgage lender in a supporting operations role. And it made me look at, okay, what do I want to do in the future? Like, if this is going to be a change, if this is going to be something that's going to be significant in my life, what do I want to do? What skills do I have? What gaps do I have? And then I leveraged it as an opportunity, as a point to make myself better. And so I interviewed for jobs that I didn't necessarily know I wanted. I tried to learn about industries that I didn't really know about, and it didn't really suit me. And so what I did was it made me then really hone into what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. And then enabled me to learn new skills to support what I was doing. So I think in the face of adversity, there's always opportunity, as they would say. And I think one of the things that gave me the kick up the bum that I needed in that time was I was actually a CMAP level financial advisor. And I went back to being a BDR inside of the tech space, because all my friends were earning tons of money and having loads of fun. And all the people that I knew in the finance world were really unhappy and worried about the implications of the FCA. So I then took a step back and I went into BDR and I put my best foot forward, and I was making 120 calls a day. 120 calls a day. That was what I was making. And I was getting roughly 20 meetings a month. And within 6 months, I was then promoted to a sales manager. And then after that, I went into management. But it's because of the fact that I gave myself that chance and that time to look at what I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And sometimes adversity helps shape that.
I love that story. That's great. It's a good reminder for those, starting their career, who are listening this for the first time, like the level of activity, that is required at the beginning of your career, and that doesn't really change. So we're coming up to the end of this conversation now, and it's been great to kind of learn more about you. Just like generally, especially with all the travel that you do, like how do you maintain that balance for yourself, and that your well-being? How do you look after your mental and also kind of physical well-being?
Yeah, so I think that there's two parts to it. One is you have to stay physically fit because your body and your mind are connected. So exercise definitely makes a difference. I may not always look like it, but the gym is something that is a ritual to me, and that's again something I try and instill in people when I'm around them. The other factor is making sure you understand control the controllables. So the reason I had that book, and the person that actually gave me the book reminded me that each and every time you take something on, you make a commitment to somebody. And if you let that person down because you haven't delivered it, they feel negatively of you. And so therefore it can impact your perception, your perceived perception to others. So by making sure I note down the things that I have to make happen, it means that I keep control of what is important. And therefore, each and every time I'm doing something, I'm controlling the controllables, which therefore means my mindset is clear because I've achieved something. And actually having those, one of the most therapeutic things in the world is sitting there and ticking when you've achieved it. Like literally, it could be a case of make sure you have phoned HR about expenses. Tick, done. Now I can let the whole business know that we have a process moving forward. That's the kind of success that sometimes in a day you need just to get you into that successful movement.
I totally agree. Like celebrating the small wins, throughout your day is so important. Like my dad's a kind of always been a kind of lifelong fan of tennis, and tennis is obviously, it's not like football, rugby, where it's kind of a certain number of points. Is every swing is points, and you can celebrate those little wins to get to the kind of major set wins. And I think from a sales perspective, like there's so much that we can get distracted by, put off, worried about, that in terms of like a ritual practice of just focusing and enjoying when you get a little win, you move a sale, an opportunity to the next sales stage, or you get that response to that email you were waiting for. Yeah, it might not be the big deal just yet. It might not be the big promotion that you're waiting for, but all those little celebrations just make life and work more enjoyable. And you need to kind of acknowledge them and show gratitude. So like this has been fantastic. I mean, there's so much really thoughtful perspectives that you brought to this conversation that I'm looking forward to sharing. My final thing is just like what so people have got this far listening or watching this. What's your final takeaway for people? Like, or what's your final thoughts or last bit of advice that you would kind of share with the audience today?
I think the key thing is make sure you take time for yourself. We talk about work, we talk about all these things, but work and the surrounding noise that comes from it only matters if you're there in sound, stable mind and a mind frame to do something about it. If you can't do your job because you're not looking after yourself, it doesn't matter. Your job's going to suffer, and therefore you're going to suffer. So make sure you take time to look after yourself, and again, help one another, because we don't like to fail as a human race. We don't like change. But if you help one another, it then makes that journey easy, and therefore success comes from it. So look after yourself and help one another.
Great takeaway. Help one another, paying it forward. It's absolutely what we're about as part of this community and profession. It's great to have your continued support, Matthew. Really enjoyed the conversation. For everybody listening, you've been listening to the Sales Confidence podcast. My name's James Skee, the CEO and founder of Sales Confidence. And today our special guest has been Matthew Blanchard, who is the GM of Varicent, the world's leading sales performance management platform. It's been a pleasure to have you on, Matt, and looking forward to more conversations in 2023.
Thanks, everybody.